The band Ween. What can be said about them other than they're geniuses, they're funny guys. Listen to a Ween record, you'll be confused. Hopefully you'll laugh a little bit. We had the pleasure of touring with them in Australia, I believe, at Alternative Festival, Alternative Nation Festival, which all I remember about that is hanging out with Ween and mud, lots of mud, and these real funny guys.
In 1998, Ween were a band on the precipice. They had been on the verge of a mainstream breakthrough with songs like Push the Little Daisies, then Ocean Man, but had never fully broken through. The Mollusk had been a crossroads of sorts. Half the album harkened back to their fun-loving Brown era, with tracks like The Blarney Stone and Waving My Dick in the Wind, and the other half had demonstrated a pull towards mature sincerity, with tracks like It's Gonna Be Alright and Cold Blows the Wind. They had also begun to feel serious pushback from the representatives at Elektra Records. The old guard that had signed Ween had long since changed, and releases like 12 Golden Country Greats had only worked to confuse the higher-ups as to Ween's place on the label. So as Ween began to work on their 7th studio album, they felt a serious pressure to deliver. Ween had the potential for greatness. All they had to do was reach out and pluck it from the bush.
Oh, we're Ween.
What's a Ween?
We're a band, you know.
Out of nowhere, out of the total musical vacuum, out of total darkness, comes one ray of light. And it's fucking Ween.
Writing sessions for the new album began in the previously flooded beach house on the Jersey Shore from the Mollusk era. Despite wanting Todd Rundgren to produce, the band eventually settled on Chris Shaw, a legendary producer in his own right, who had cut tracks by Bob Dylan, Public Enemy, Bad Brains, Weezer, A Tribe Called Quest, Leonard Cohen, Wilco, Lou Reed, and Jeff Buckley. Shaw would also suggest the eventual title of the album, a portmanteau of Sgt. Pepper's and the White Album. White Pepper would be the first album to feature all 5 modern band members: Gene, Dean, Claude, Glenn, and Dave. For the first time, Ween's album recording process actually resembled that of a normal band, rather than the frantic tape deck overdub chaos typical of a Ween studio session. During the recording, the boys all lived together in a farmhouse in Woodstock, New York, commuting into Bearsville Studio to lay down tracks. By all accounts, the recording went smoothly. It was Claude's favorite album to record, feeling that the material perfectly suited his drumming style. Diener has stated several times that he loves the album's accessibility, something that might surprise anyone who's ever listened to Moist Boys. On May 2nd of 2000, Elektra Records released Ween's final major label album, White Pepper. After going through several proposed designs for the album, the cover art Ween eventually settled on was an illustration by John Weiss, who had filled in on drums for the on-screen version of Ween in the classic, critically acclaimed film, It's Pat, the movie.
Yeah, anyway, we're doing a gig tonight, and we were wondering if you wanted to come out and play.
Great! I'm in a band! I hopped aboard that bus knowing that I was on the road to fame and fortune.
The album begins with Exactly Where I'm At, a sonic cold plunge into Ween's all-new velvety studio sound. It also heralds Ween's shocking turn into newfound lyrical sincerity and straight-ahead songwriting. The song feels like one long verse, all building to a mind-blowing solo that says, Ween is back, and this time, we're here to top the charts. In many ways, it's a perfect start to White Pepper, and is in my book, one of the greatest album openers of all time. Next is Flutes of Chi, which is by far the oldest composition on White Pepper, dating back to 1993 during the Pure Guava era. According to Diener, Flutes of Chi was the song we've recorded more than any other Ween song ever. Versions of the song were recorded for both Chocolate and Cheese and the Mollusk, with the latter getting pretty far into the process. The band began to feel burnt out after recording the song 5 times for the Mollusk, before ultimately giving up and releasing it on Ween.com on August 12, 1998. But after being well received, Ween decided to overdub one of the Mollusk recordings and included the song on White Pepper. Even If You Don't, the first single from White Pepper, is a blissful work of piano power pop. Prior to the album's release, the song was previewed for radio station employees, who loved the song, before it was revealed who had written it. According to Gene, nobody knew who the band was until the end, and then they revealed it was Ween. Everybody freaked out and said, "Don't we have some kind of image problem here?" Everybody was really bummed that it was us, but they liked it anyway. The song was also one of the hallowed few to have a music video produced for it, which was directed by South Park creators Trey Parker and Matt Stone. Next is Bananas and Blow, a concept that had been brewing since the recording of The Mollusk. In October of 1997, Dean told Earwig, "We want to go to Havana, Cuba, and we want to call the record Bananas and Blow. We just want to live on bananas and cocaine for a month while we make our record. And all of side 4 is going to be Bananas and Blow, like the one song is going to be 25 minutes. The track eventually ended up being just 3.5 minutes, but is an achievement all the same, with the catchy Jimmy Buffett-esque songwriting propped up by lush tropical production, and capped off with an outstanding solo, courtesy of Dean. Bananas and Blow also features backup vocals in the chorus from Venice Thomas and Angela Clemens, who also feature an album outtake and Chris Harford composition, Does It Turn You On? In an interview with CMJ, Gene explained, "We've always been talking about selling out like that. The backing vocalist was it for us. We've always talked since we were 14 that when we get the backup singers in, then we will have truly sold out." Stroker Ace is a blistering proto-thrash track dedicated to NASCAR driver Dick Trickle. Often performed live with Jeaner manning a megaphone, it's undoubtedly one of Ween's heaviest compositions, rivaled only by a certain song from their next album. Next is Ice Castles, a dungeon synth instrumental, which originally, you might be surprised to find out, was written for the ukulele. After going through many aliases such as The Baroque Jam and Anal Plump Fairies, it was eventually titled Ice Castles, after the Donald Rye movie. Back to Bassum is an epic, bombastic piece of psych prog, and an absolute album highlight. It was named for the small, sleepy town of Bassum in West New York, and reads like a yearning for a return to the simple life. Next is The Grobe, a sludgy stoner rock anthem which is, according to Gene, about cooking rice and heroin, and it's another taste of just how heavy Ween can get. Pandy Fackler is a smooth yacht rock track about a prostitute from Jersey who loves to dance. It's one of the rare tracks sung entirely by Dean, although Gene takes over vocal duties live due to the difficulty of the guitar part. The band often busts out the song live as an excuse for Glenn to solo for extended periods, during which time the other band members will take a bathroom break. Next is Stay Forever, which was actually written for the Mollusk before eventually being left off the album. The song, allegedly written about Gene's ex-situationship with Tanya Hayden, is possibly the most accessible Ween song by both production and songwriting metrics. Stay Forever is equal parts sincere and polished. It screams top 10 pop rock hit, which is why it's so unfortunate that it was only given a limited release as a single in the UK through Mushroom Records. Falling Out is yet another radio-friendly pop rock anthem, this time with more of a country western twist. The lyrics, which concern both romantic and platonic personal betrayals, seem to get more specific in the second verse, suggesting animosity between Gene and some of the band's hangers-on. It almost feels like the band is tired of being on a big label because of all the expectations that come with it. Maybe it was time for a change. Finally, there's She's Your Baby, which might be Ween's softest and most syrupy sweet song ever, contested only by Lullaby from La Cucaracha. The pillowy performance and production mastery of White Pepper reaches an apex on this track, with both Dean and Claude calling it some of their best work ever on a Ween record, and I'm inclined to agree. It's the perfect way to end this gorgeous, expansive, intimate album. It feels like the end of an era, the end of Ween's big-time major label adventure, but perhaps the start of a new one.
New Hope is the town in Pennsylvania where we grew up. We still live there. It's a big gay town. Yeah, I think it's got the largest gay population per capita of any town in America outside of like San Francisco, something like that.
Really nice. Yeah.
So it's where we were born and raised.
The White Pepper Tour would see Ween on the road for 5 legs over a year, leading directly into their God Ween Satan anniversary tour. It would be Ween's biggest outing yet, hot off the success of the Mollusk, and now with a full band in tow. Ween really seemed to come into their own on the road. That's not to suggest that there were no problems during the tour, as there were many. These accounts, sourced directly from Dean Ween's year 2000 tour diaries, paint a picture of just some of the hijinks the band got into. On the way to Reading, in August of 2000, the band hit its first real hiccup. After violently dismantling the bus's CD player, allegedly breaking the back taillight cover, and, more importantly, all manner of unspecified drug-fueled debauchery, their bus driver stopped the bus on the side of the road, called the police, and quit, leaving them high and dry. They were eventually able to get a new bus, but it couldn't tow the trailer, meaning they had to ride with hundreds of pounds of gear in their laps. Then that bus broke down too, 10 miles outside of Reading. In Austria, the band were pelted with beer, which Diener initially mistook for urine. Not exactly the warmest welcome. The next June, when touring the US, Diener had a throat infection when getting on the plane, which led to him getting an ear infection, which made the gig in Kansas City sound like it was underwater to Dean on stage. Quote, great gig, though. In San Francisco, Ween's roadie, Mick Preston, saved a child from drowning in the hotel pool, which was, quote, pretty heroic stuff for a dirty douchebag like Mick. On July 2nd, the band played an Alice Cooper-themed sports bar. I'm not sure how that happened, but I'm left to wonder what the Cooper crowd thought of Poop Ship Destroyer. A week later, Ween would play 2 nights at Stubbs in Austin, leading Dean to say, if we ever make another live record, it will almost definitely be recorded at Stubbs. There are quite a few entries which really need to be read in Diener's prose rather than vaguely summarized. Entries like, Pukkelpop, Belgium, nice festival, too bad we sucked. I'm into the word Pukkelpop though. 5 Points South Music Hall, Birmingham. Blame New Orleans, blame me, I don't know. We got pretty drunk on tequila before ever playing a note. I think we probably sucked, but I'm not sure. Cow House, Tallahassee. Shit House. The Chili Pepper, Fort Lauderdale. Aaron got too drunk to walk, but somehow managed to channel it all into something gloriously horrible for our concert. I'd apologize for the 50-minute Poop Ship Destroyer, but somehow I think you deserve it for living in Fort Lauderdale. I highly recommend reading the entire article on Monster Fresh if you want unprecedented amounts of access into the bewildering, often nightmarish touring conditions for Ween. But I think it's safe to say that this tour was, at the very least, memorable, and that has to count for something.
There's a really popular band in America called Fish, and they're probably popular here to a certain extent, but they kind of soaked up the whole Grateful Dead crowd after Jerry Garcia died, and they play some of our tunes. So the last couple of years, we've started seeing these like nomad hippies following us around just on that alone, you know. It's kind of funny to us, stinky hippies.
The album itself was generally warmly received, with a few caveats. Though Entertainment Weekly gave it a B, and NME gave it a 5 out of 10, Pitchfork gave it an 8 out of 10, and Stephen Irwin of AllMusic, Uncut, and The Guardian all gave the album 4 stars. Despite general praise for the newfound maturity of the band from critics, many fans initially took it as a bridge too far from their previous work. Sure, Chocolate and Cheese and the Mollusk had featured moments of sincerity, but White Pepper was almost entirely heart, with very little brown, at least on a surface level. However, as time went on, many fans began to reevaluate the album, especially after cuts off Quebec like Hey There Fancy Pants and The Fuck Jam proved that Ween still had a sense of humor. Nate Rogers for Stereo Gum put this best when he wrote, "It's much easier to appreciate White Pepper now that we know it didn't lead to a final form in which Ween were just edgeless and overglossed. The band never gave in to the powers that be. They never stopped being artists who deferred to the playful will of their mighty demon god Boognish, while also writing frequently, if not perpetually, fantastic music." In 2000, Ween was dropped from Elektra Records. Despite being the label that had taken such a big risk in taking on the band, the staff at Elektra had changed so much that they were unrecognizable from just 8 years before, meaning there was no love lost between the two. Regardless, Ween remained appreciative for the opportunity.
That's kind of middle of the road with record sales. You know, we sell like 100,000 records. Should be a lot of records, but in this day and age, it's not. And we got dropped from Elektra. And we were on Elektra since 92. The guy who signed us to Elektra wasn't at the label after 94.
Turnover every 6 months, it seems.
There's a lot of freedom in where we're at right now. All the hard work has been done for Ween by Elektra Records, to their credit. They put us in a spot now where we can use the web to our advantage.
In 2001, Ween would form their own indie label, Choco Dog Records, and despite the technical step down in prominence, they were excited to get back to being their own boss. When it came time to begin work on their next album, they realized they had amassed a crop of new songs that were so good that they felt obliged to do them right. Not only would this be their first indie record in a decade, it would consist of compositions rivaling the Mollusk in quality. And in order to bring them to life on record, they needed a producer that spoke their language. In 2001, as Gene and Dean picked up the phone, they knew just who to call. The question was, would he answer?
The guy who signed us to Elektra wasn't at the label after '94.
Turnover every 6 months, it seems.
We still haven't made up our mind what we're going to do. I mean, everybody's really excited about the web as a source of getting music. To have that be your only place where your music is available, I'm not a believer just yet.